Fire it up, Bob.
Fired up.
All right. We'll call to
Thank you.
order the examining board of plumbers meeting for today, May 6th. Last meeting was held here on April 8th. First order of business is to review the minutes from our last meeting and have these accepted into the record. That was the meeting where we reviewed some applications from Mr. Progovitz and Mr. Fruscello. Both letters were not approved. Letters were sent to Mr. Progovitz and Fruscello. We also introduced a letter that was submitted to the board from Hinman and Howard and Cattell, who was representing George Slavic. The letter questions, it stated the requirements in chapter 310, which is the plumbing code, and requested that the board and the plumbing inspector fulfill their duties under the court, under the charter and the code. And Mr. Slavic and Mr. Posey attended the meeting and spoke. Then I made a motion to adjourn, and that was it. Anybody want to make a motion to move those minutes into the record?
I'd like to raise an issue. I thought that I had made a motion for the Corporation Council to review the letter and that we would suggest that they respond to it in some way. And
Yes.
I thought that was made.
You did. That's not in the notes, but you're right, you did that. So under this important piece of information about the letter, I will say that Fred recommended review and response, review of letter, and response from Corporation Council. So we can amend those minutes. We can read them at the next meeting and move these into the record.
Right.
We'll change that. All right, so we're not gonna move these old minutes into the record yet, but we will move on to a continuation of that discussion
Okay.
and new business. So we did, as you had recommended, submitted the letter to Corporation Council. They replied. I copied you all on that reply,
Yeah, we
and you
got
saw
that.
what it said. I'm not responding to this.
Okay. I'm kind of confused big time that I guess the strategy is await further direction from them. I mean, if they're not gonna do anything in a formal setting.
Mhm.
I don't know legally where we stand, what we could do or not do. But wouldn't you think they'd follow up on that?
Well, in an odd way, they did, Fred, and we'll move right into the meat and potatoes of this entree. After responding and saying, I don't believe that this letter needs a written response from Corporation Council. We had some additional conversations with Corporation Council. I was a little concerned that there might be some liability
Right.
that the board members would assume if we don't do as the letter requested, which is to fulfill your duties under the city charter. So I did ask her, Sophie Bergman, our Corporation Counsel, if we could discuss this further. And let me see if I get my dates right here. On April 18th. Yeah, April 18th at 9:03 a.m. I said, Sophie, the letter from HH&K is making it clear that if the city and its employees or appointed board members fail to respond appropriately to these actual or potential violations, HH&K will act on the complainant's behalf and hold the city responsible. Seems like that's what they were saying. We're asking you to fulfill your duties. She said if we receive information that work is being performed, there's a number of things you could do. Stop work order, cancel their permit if they ever got one. And if you know of any particulars, let us know, because a violation of Article 310 could result in a misdemeanor. So I did follow up and let her know of a particular situation. And she said, I'll need some time to think about this. How about we meet and discuss? When we met and discussed, I said, so what should we do? And she said, that's up to you.
That's up to us.
That's up to the board. I said, but are we doing everything we should be doing, or are we not fulfilling our duties under the charter and exposing ourselves to some liability? And she said, it's up to the board. If you have knowledge of a condition that's in violation of what you interpret the laws to be saying, then the board should decide how they respond.
Right, and none of us have knowledge.
Well, fast forward to whatever month and day that was in January, February, where a vacant property was claiming, was appealing for a reduction in the vacant property registration fee. It's normally $550, but if you're currently working on a vacant property and working to make it occupied so that it's no longer a blight, we will reduce your fee to $50. If we had an individual who made the claim that he was doing some work on his building and would like to apply for the $50 fee, the vacant property officer informed the building department that this person is claiming to be doing some work. We investigated, we found that there was in fact some plumbing work to be done. And when we questioned the individual and said, what kind of work is being done? He said, all on the level plumbing work being done by my good friends at Fancher. And Pat informed them that they don't have a license,
Yeah.
they don't have a permit. We put a stop work order on that. Send a notice of violation to the owner that says you don't have a permit. The people you hired don't have a license, and you are here ordered to cease all work taking place until you get that squared away. He was nice enough to provide us with the invoice from Fancher for $3,800, $3,300.
I have all of it if you'd like a copy of it.
Yeah, we can pass it around.
I've got a copy for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's the
So there's,
registration for the vacant building.
right, so we asked the guy,
John's notes to me.
we asked the guy to register. He said, I want the reduction because I'm doing some work. And
Thank you.
he gave us this invoice from Fancher for 36. We can see the service was completed by Luke W. and Devontae L. And we sent the individual a stop work order.
So where does that stand then?
Well, that's apparently Corporation Counsel did have a verbal conversation with Alexander Raqueta. And Alexander stated that he felt that that was a sufficient response. That if we knew that there was work being done without a permit and we issued a stop work order and sent a notice of violation to the homeowner and told them you're having work done without a permit, then that was a sufficient response. I would agree.
Well, that seemed like a user-friendly way for us to deal with these things.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't want to see us get involved in some massive, litigation on these things, but let them carry the ball to us.
The complainants,
Pardon?
the complainant should tell us.
Yeah,
where this work is
Right, but
taking
what I'm
place.
saying is in this particular case, the way you've laid it out, they're at an impasse, right? They can't proceed if there's a stop work order, correct?
Right,
So they've either got to comply, or they got to go to court, or they got to do something. But once the word gets out that that's the way these things are gonna go, I think there'll be a diminishment of these.
That's the way these things have always gone.
Okay,
That's the way it's always been handled.
okay,
There was never an issue until there were baseless accusations presented to the board.
okay,
What they presented on 16 Frederick was shut down, on 45 Charlotte was shut down. And then the last month at 136 Park has been shut down.
okay.
So
I'm just going on what was presented by the two people that appeared here at our last meeting, that this was a rampant,
And,
way that they
and
were
we
in.
asked for facts.
Okay,
And we received facts on one property and that's been taken care of. No
okay.
different than it always has been in the past.
What about the sheltered workshop? What is the deal?
That's hearsay about someone who is possibly going to be awarded a contract.
Okay,
We can't get into that.
I didn't get the subtlety of that when we were here at the last meeting. I thought it already had been an accomplished fact.
Well, we wouldn't be able to grant them a permit if they listed an unlicensed plumber
Okay,
as their plumber of choice. We would be very clear to them and say, we can't grant a plumbing
Right.
permit to someone who's not licensed.
To my understanding, they had my company listed.
They did.
Yes, they do.
I haven't heard anything from there. But I think part of what this letter complaint was on that job was that the developer was bringing in one of these companies whose owner doesn't have a plumbing license, but one of the employees has a plumbing license.
okay.
That's the way I understood.
Right.
Their argument from our
Yeah.
last meeting on that job.
Look, that's exactly
It's all
what,
hearsay. Well, from my perspective, it's all hearsay.
Well, Pat, I think that's the way that we ought to handle it at this point. Just-
Yeah, as far as that address, 200 Court, we don't have any applications for a plumbing permit other than what the general contractor submitted,
Correct.
which, as Michael said, has his company's name on it. If he doesn't have a contract,
It's just a phony, it's a fraudulent presentation.
sure.
well, or it could be the case that the permits are made out to the property owner.
Mhm.
And as you can imagine, if you had somebody named as your plumber at your house and they just didn't show up for work for a couple
Yeah.
of weeks, you might say, you know what, I'm not gonna use ABC Plumbing anymore. I think I'm gonna switch and go with XYZ. You let us know and we say, Fred, the permit is yours. You can use 2 different plumbing companies or 10, whatever it takes to get the job, as long as all 10 are licensed plumbers
Right.
and insured. You as the homeowner and the permit holder have the right to change your mind.
Yeah, I understand all that. I
So
just-
so 200 Court Street could conceivably say, I'm gonna use George Slavic, and then when we get down to the actual job, they say, we changed our minds.
Right.
Okay,
So they didn't really misrepresent. They could have fully intended to use George the whole time,
Yeah.
and then they said, on second thought, I'm gonna go with Anthony. That's well within their rights to do so. So I don't know that,
But I think their complaint
yeah,
isn't so much of another competitor getting awarded the contract
Yeah.
who's a legit licensed plumber in the city of Binghamton. Their complaint is, let's say one of these bigger companies that the owners aren't licensed plumbers, but
Right.
somebody on their staff is a licensed plumber. They're using that
yeah,
person's perm or a license
yeah.
to get a permit.
We
That's the way I
we wouldn't
understood it.
allow that.
No,
I mean, so just to set everybody at ease, if that was the information that came into the building and construction office, we would have to say, we're politely telling you that's not possible. This person is not a 51% owner of the corporation who's intending to get a license, get a permit. But that's where George and Anthony were saying, let me just remind you in case you decided that might be okay. That's not okay.
right. And I think they were citing specifically a Hanahan and Fancher.
Right.
Nobody else, from what I understand.
No. And Ohana, he is licensed and they did actually provide paperwork to show that there was a percentage of ownership. And the percentage, if we read the code as it's written, says it's not just one person owns 51%, it could be a combination. So if you had 4 owners and 3 of them were licensed plumbers, that's 75% ownership. They just have to have licenses in excess of 51% ownership.
well,
So-
to me, that's reassuring. I left the meeting last week with the idea that this whole process was being corrupted all over the place, and now having more facts, it seems as though everything that they said was premature.
I think they were just letting us know that if these things came up, they're hoping that we have A, already done the right thing, and B, will in the future do the right thing.
Okay, well,
That's the way I understood it too.
However,
just-
you should all
That's section
They have a
310
copy.
that they referred to.
have a copy of the plumbing code.
I'll get you one. I only had a couple copies left.
I guess my only question to the board is, if we've seen this happen twice where an individual did work and represented himself as being licensed because he employs a master plumber, is it enough to go back to the homeowner on Charlotte Street and the building owner on Park Ave and say, shame on you for hiring somebody who's not licensed and never got a permit?
you got the stop work order, that,
And is that enough, or do we go to the person who had represented themselves as licensed plumbers and assured the building owner that they would get the permit on their behalf and send them a notice of violation and say, I'm not, ticketing you or subpoenaing you to court, but we are saying, let it be known that what you're doing is unlawful.
to me, that's a perfect resolution.
So if you don't understand what I'm saying is we have a notice of violation, which we already presented with the stop work order. It's basically in order to remedy or in order to cease doing something wrong. We've already told the property owners at 2 locations that the company they hired did not have sufficient licensing and permits to perform the work that they did. And we're kind of relying on them to go back to that company and say, hey, you misrepresented yourself, or you assured me that you were licensed and you're not. Is it incumbent on, we don't have to answer this today. You could look at these and answer it at the next meeting next month, but you should look at 310-8 and ask, should we also be sending a letter to the company who is putting these people in these precarious positions?
Right, and I was just curious, like, so did Fancher actually do this work or
Yeah, they did
So,
some.
what,
and
what happens to them? So,
That's my question. And this is, look at, all they say in HH&K's letter is they're asking the board and the plumbing inspector to fulfill their duties under the charter. So I want you to read at least 310-8 of the charter and ask yourselves, as the board, are we fulfilling our duties, or is it incumbent on us to go beyond just notifying the homeowner? And should we also notify this company of the law surrounding obtaining permits or imagining that you're licensed, and let them know that that doesn't really, that's not how we see it. We don't see that because you hired a licensed plumber, you now can get permits, although they've never asked for a permit.
But wouldn't we need like a task force to be like 100% in the right with this? In other words, is the city typically in or us as a plumbing board, are we typically in a reactionary state, or are we always looking to get ahead of something?
Well, that's a good question. Are we reactive or proactive?
Well, there you go. Because
I would say we're reacting to this to become more proactive in the future.
right, but I mean, to be proactive, we'd have to have like a task force out there driving around all day long looking at this.
Well, we don't have to-
Corporation council behind you.
We don't have to
Correct.
promise to do it on every job every time, because we can't be everywhere. But when we know about 2 occasions,
Oh, absolutely.
that's what I'm asking. Should we send them a letter? Or should we say, look, we reacted to both of those
Nip
perfectly
it in the
appropriate?
bud and shut it off.
I think I agree with you. I think we should react anytime that we know and address it accordingly.
But we don't need to be proactive and send out a reminder to this company and say, you're not really licensed. Stop imagining that you are, or representing to people that you are.
Well, we have to have some facts to do that, though, do we not? I mean,
Right.
we have to have something that says, this is what the facts are. I think that the way you're suggesting that it be handled is a perfect resolution to it, because you've got the stop work order. Doesn't that foreclose them from doing anything? Then the burden's on them to come to us. We don't have to recreate the world to file against them and subpoena their records
We
and
could,
all that
we,
stuff.
I mean, we wouldn't give them, we wouldn't give the plumbing company a stop work order. We would just cite chapter 310-8 that says you're not really licensed and permitted to do plumbing work in the city unless this person who holds the license owns 50%.
Yeah, you could formulate a letter standard, but I'll.
And if they want to come back and say, hey, look at this, he is 51% owner.
fine.
Right.
Then we would
Right.
examine it at that time. That's the way I see it.
But if he was, you would have thought he would have gone about things the right way and got a permit. As opposed to doing it.
True, on two
Behind closed
occasions,
doors.
just
Agreed.
doing it without the.
So, and as far as having evidence of it, we have a bill for each property that the property received from Fancher Appliance, stating what plumbers worked on that specific job, what dates they worked on that job. So we have invoices from Fancher sent to the owners.
Okay,
I mean, the question I say to myself is, why would these companies put themselves in a position knowing that they gotta get their work inspected, so they're gonna have to call you?
But the permit initiates the inspection. And so
Sure.
if they're not drawing permits.
Yeah.
We don't know until we catch them.
Well, maybe there's two things we could say. We could send a notice to this company and say two things under building code 209A. All alterations and reconfigurations and installations of new equipment have to have a permit, and you didn't.
Yep.
And we would also say, and to get a permit, you have to have a licensed plumber who owns 51% of the company, and to our knowledge, you didn't. And it's not a re-inspection date or an order to remedy or
Yep.
anything other than an FYI saying, in case you didn't know what the law was, you know, that this is not a case where you can come back 6 months from now and say, but you guys never told me.
isn't it true though, that once they get to that point, they've got a lot of time, effort and money invested in the project. And they will have to remedy it, otherwise it just doesn't go anywhere.
Well, see, I think on one occasion, the building owner had to go and hire a licensed plumber
Yeah.
to actually, and
That's the
to
remedy.
review the work that this unlicensed company did and get it inspected by us and get a certificate of compliance. So they basically had to they had to pay for the job, not really twice, but they had to hire two different companies. One who
Absolutely,
did it
but
unlawfully and then one who
If-
came in and made it right.
if we don't have that approach, we might as well just abandon the plumbing board.
Well, yeah, that's the stop work order did that.
But that's like a magic bullet. You know, you got people on the job, you borrowed money, you got investors in the project and so forth. So I like that idea. That keeps us at a minimum.
Yeah. All right. So you guys want to take a look at the code? We can come back next month and you can say, hey, I think we did everything that we were supposed to do. We fulfilled our duties as the Board of Plumbing Examiners. I'm satisfied. Or you can come back next month and say, hey, why don't we draft a friendly letter to this company, not just the homeowners who are getting notified that it was wrong, but to this company and saying, just so you know, you need permits, and to get permits, you need licenses, and you don't
I'm
have.
surprised we didn't get a follow-up letter from Hinman's office saying, oh, we got the Corporation Council's letter,
They didn't get a letter, they got a phone call.
just a phone call.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, I thought they got a copy of the letter that we
no,
got.
they spoke to that. Alex,
Yeah, Alex Ricketta.
That attorney.
Our corporation counsel
Oh.
spoke with Alex Ricketta, but she did not draft a written response. And she said that he felt that a stop work order was appropriate.
Okay. Well, the problem is, the two people that we had here, they're prominent around town, and you'll see it and they'll ask you what the hell's going on.
And we could
And
tell,
we'll just report
yeah.
or
well,
not
we-
report or say,
you know,
no,
They
it's
can
all-
watch the minutes, right? They can go back and watch this video.
yeah, they can look at the minutes.
I see Vanchers now, they're advertising electrical work. So I don't know if that means.
You know,
anything to
who
you
knows
guys.
what they're intending to do, and I'm not saying
But I
that they
see
can't
they're-
grow and
yeah.
change and be everything they want it to be. We just want to make sure that they're not violating the code to the extent that we know about it and didn't do something about it. And I just want to make sure that we are fulfilling our duties.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question there.
All right, so we don't have to,
No.
you know,
You don't have to do anything.
throw anybody in the back of the car and drag them to court, but we
No.
could at least let them know that some of the things that we've observed are not in compliance with the code.
Perfect,
And if they continue to do so, then we've given them enough
Yeah.
rope to hang themselves,
absolutely.
right? We've given them plenty of chances or information. They can't say, they can't use ignorance as a defense and say, I just didn't know.
I hope we can all agree on this. If we get involved in all this minutia, I'm gonna be looking for a raise.
Okay,
I'm gonna go back to the $100.
I was thinking 35 instead of. That's,
Is that all I'm worth? 35?
that's almost 10%, Fred. that you can
Oh
cross.
my
Go in
God,
increments.
you're killing me. I had,
Here he wants a 200% increase.
no, here's the thing, I've been on the board a long time, and of all the, expenses in the city, they seized upon the plumbing board to reduce it from $100 to $33.
Well,
Yeah,
For appearance.
yeah,
they're getting 3 for 1 now.
absolutely. We'll table that motion, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all I had. Does anybody else have any ideas or new business or?
Yeah.
I just think that moving forward, no matter what company it is, I think Pat's always available, we're all always
Yeah,
available.
we're
If somebody
always around.
sees something, say something, and
Yeah.
we'll definitely straighten it out and make it right
Yeah.
for the charter.
Right, right.
I don't think anyone has any,
Yeah,
ulterior motives than that. We want to do the right thing.
I agree. And I think we have been.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So. Motion to adjourn?
Hear me, right?
Yeah,
Did we get the invoice? For today?
sorry. Slacking.
All right. Fred wants to know if he's gonna get paid. Hang on a second.
No,
Meeting's still in progress.
no, can I share a story with you?
All right, motion to adjourn, second, adjourned, off the record story. Thank you.